Hello and welcome. You're watching DD India, and this is a special presentation that we're getting you because COP28 is on. The leaders are holding a summit very soon at the Global Climate Action Summit. So we're talking about how the world is uniting for climate action. I'm Gautam Roy, and we will be getting you all the updates related to this mega global event, all for helping the situation where climate change has been wreaking a lot of havoc all around. But first up, let's get you some global headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi attends the COP28 Leaders Summit in Dubai. 3 other high-level events are also to be graced by Prime Minister Modi. The Indian PM tells a UAE publication that India and the COP28 host are partners in shaping a greener future. Countries at the UN COP28 Climate Summit formally approve a deal on a new climate disaster fund. The aim is to help the world's poorest and most vulnerable nations hit by climate disasters. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived at the Dubai Expo Centre, where the Leaders Summit is being held, Global Climate Action Summit. Prime Minister Modi was received by COP28 President Dr. Sultan Al Jaber and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres at the Expo City in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, ahead of the opening session of the World Climate Action Summit. They received the other world leaders as well, and pretty soon we'll be getting you a family photo of all the leaders who've collected there as well. Now, the World Climate Action Summit is the high-level segment of the 28th Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that's the UNFCCC. The Conference of Parties provides a unique opportunity to impart momentum for collective action towards combating the shared challenge of climate change. Climate change has been an important priority area of India's G20 presidency, and COP28 will provide an opportunity to take forward the success of the Delhi Declaration. During his visit, Prime Minister Modi will also be interacting with various world leaders on the sidelines of the summit. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said India and the UAE stand as partners in shaping a greener and more prosperous future. In an exclusive interview to a UAE-based newspaper, Al Ittihad, Prime Minister Modi highlighted some of the steps taken by India to tackle the climate change. The PM said, India and the UAE stand as partners in shaping a greener and more prosperous future. India and the UAE have enduring relations, and they provide support to the International Solar Alliance's Global Solar Facility. India and the UAE have emerged as leaders in global renewable energy efforts. Climate action must be based on equity, climate justice, shared obligations and shared capacities. We must ensure that development priorities of the Global South are not compromised. Enduring relationship is founded on multiple pillars. The dynamism of the ties in between India and UAE is expressed by a comprehensive strategic partnership. Cooperation between the two countries spans the entire energy spectrum with a strong focus on sustainability. India's Mission Lifestyle for Environment is an initiative to motivate the entire world. During India's G20 presidency, India ensured that particular attention was paid to climate change. At COP26, India has presented Panchamrit, 5 ambitious commitments of India to tackle climate change. Now, this is the second day of the COP28 summit, where several world leaders, including the UAE's President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, among others, including Prime Minister Modi, are attending the Leaders Summit. The climate forum formally started on Thursday, which saw delegates adopting a new fund to help poor nations cope with costly climate disasters. Well, the delegates at COP28 received a sweet surprise upon entering the hall, complimentary chocolates with a crucial message. The wrappers had a message inside. It encouraged them to collaborate in achieving the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. The process firm purchasing these chocolates in Europe will contribute to planting more trees worldwide. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya with more details.
In COP28, people are making a statement through chocolate. Yes, they are giving chocolate, but they are also making a statement through these things that are written here. I will get to you more information. Sir, it's written store at max 1.5. What is that?
So 1.5 degrees is the goal of the Paris Climate Accord, and we really want to keep the 1.5 degrees maximum of weather change.
And it's also written 1.2 degrees and 420 ppm. And what's the significance of that?
Yes, so we are already at 1.2 degrees, so there's not much left to 1.5. So we have to act like really fast and cut down emissions.
So I want to know, you guys are giving chocolates here for free. What's the message that you guys are giving? Why giving these chocolates to the delegates here?
Yes, there were at one time like 6 trillion trees. Now there are 3 trillion trees. So we have to restore forests around the world because they suck CO2 from the atmosphere. It's not the solution, but it will give us more time to reduce emissions and then fight climate change together.
And there is also a statement that is there. What is that statement, you guys? What is the whole thing here inside this wrapper?
Yes, so this is the statement we have to delegates. It basically says that we need to restore the forests around the world and that we have to act really fast to fight the climate crisis.
So you see, these are the manner in which chocolates is bringing a major change in COP28. The delegates are getting these chocolates for free, but this is how they are making a statement in the world: plant more trees and stop cutting trees. And that's the only way you can restore carbon emission in the environment. With camera person Jashangar, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for DD India from Dubai.
I hope that message hits the home and gets the message across as well. Well, let's now bring in our guests as well to talk about what's unfolding, especially today, as far as Dubai is concerned at the COP28 in that expo. We are joined by Dr. Shrikant K. Panigrahi, Director General, Indian Institute of Sustainable Development, that's IISD, and Colonel Sanjay Srivastav, Chairperson, Climate Resilient Observing Systems Promotion Councils, that's the CROPCs, also joining us remotely. Good afternoon to you both. Dr. Panigrahi, what can you tell us about, first of all these leaders that are gathering there in this global summit, really, for climate action? They will be they'll be doing a stock take on how far has the world got, where it's falling short, where it's done better, mostly falling short though. So, and then what action will they propose to, make up the gaps? Do you feel that there is a complete unity on the way forward from there?
Yeah, very important question. The COP is a process which is started from COP 1 and now we are at COP 8. In each COP, all the 196 countries who are the member countries of the COP, they basically come together once in a year and take a decision to review the process, what are the progress achieved so far in various sectors of implementation. And whether we have achieved what has been really achieved so far, and what are the gap remaining. And so accordingly, the future action plans are worked out, and this review process continues. We have 27 COPs, and there are many demands. We know loss and damage fund we have discussed in last COP, and that is to be taken over now in COP28, and it has already started, and disaster fund has already arrived that we have informed the floor. And in loss and damage, India is strongly supporting this fund, and it will help the developing and the underdeveloped world to build their capacities. And the fund is really flowing or not, that is the matter to be seen, as till as of now it has not flowed as it has been assured by the developed countries. The next comes the stock taking, and Indian Foreign Secretary has given an opinion that it is a high time. India is expecting that during COP28, India is expecting to agree on a roadmap of climate finance, which there will be enough provision of climate finance and the technology transfer to meet the future requirements as per the common agreed agenda for COP29 action plan. So that is the key. While doing all this, India is already taking and will keep on taking the leadership of Global South. And in Global South, we are having 4 demands. First is equity, second is climate justice, third is common but differential responsibility, which has remained as the main ethos behind all the COPs right from the beginning, and the fourth one is adaptation. More focus on adaptation and adaptation fund.
Right. Now, Colonel Sanjay Srivastava, in the context of this stocktake again, when the world will really look at how far they've come in terms of meeting what was agreed in Paris, where do you think we stand? Because if you go by what the UN has had to say in September, the world is falling very short, and it suggested really very, very ambitious targets, ambitious goals, which again are highly contentious.
You see, this conference, we are lucky enough to be represented by a leader, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has been attending COP 2015 onwards regularly. So his experience and the progression made in the COP up to COP28, probably he is one of the most seasoned leader. So in this context, I am very hopeful that today, 1st December and 2nd December is the leadership summit, where our Prime Minister's leadership, his negotiation ability is going to really work out for the developing and the poor countries. As you know, in G20, we have included climate change and disaster risk reduction as the 13th component, and there is a strong advocacy by India for a fund for climate resilience and disaster response. If you see the reports which has come yesterday by the World Meteorological Organization and other organizations on the rising disasters and the losses, the report says that the expectation of fund is $1.5 trillion per annum. The best part today that yesterday only the Transition Committee has come up with a $400 million fund, which is a breakthrough in the loss and damage fund. And through the negotiations during the conference, we are expected to get more contribution from other countries. So from a promise, now it is action. As the Sultan Al Jaber, president of this COP28, has said that this is going to be a COP of action. We have seen that what was done, now action is starting. And more so, this conference is the global stock-taking conference, and after this, a roadmap is being charted out for a committed, scalable, and contributory action on the climate front. So all countries will be made to promise, like India has made a carbon net zero by 2050.
Yes.
And India has showcased various alliances, International Solar Alliance. The UAE itself has made the world's biggest solar energy park, and so is India progressing in this. Our hydrogen fuel, our electronic vehicles, our methanol, our renewable energy plants are example for world. You saw in G20, we launched the Global Biofuel Alliance, and we are making finance flow into the African countries, Latin American countries. So India has become a global voice of Global South, and the way we are doing our coalition of disaster resilient infrastructure, international solar alliance and biofuel alliance. These are the examples of action which will be showcased in this. This will be the platform which will give a way forward for our Prime Minister to seek more funds for the developing countries and the poor world. So this conference, from the leadership summit point of view, and with Prime Minister Modi's expertise of last, COP 2015 onwards, is going to be a great accelerator and catalyzer for the global South and India as such.
Well, certainly, and India has even more to offer to the world, isn't it, Dr. Panigrahi, in terms of its mission life and the initiative on green credit that has been taken. There's Eco-Mark as well. Could you talk about that as well? Because I believe that's going to be taken to the international stage now too.
India has taken global leadership in launching Life Mission. In Life Mission, all the individuals, to fullest of their capacities, they must committed to protect the planet. Unless we involve individuals and the movement of the climate actions by everyone, then it is very difficult to achieve the targets of the climate change, biodiversity conservation and desertification protocol. So putting all together, we should be mindful towards our lifestyles, towards our consumption and production systems, and we should follow the cultural ethos that we are for the planet and planet is not for us. And this message India has already given to the planet by launching the Life Mission. And Life Mission is being implemented through green credits mechanism by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, and various gazette notifications has come in between. And it is a voluntary process. The more you are towards the planet, the more credit you generate, which inspires the people to lead a more climate-friendly lifestyle. And now, in our G20 presidency, it is one of the greatest gift to the planet that the entire planetary citizens should adopt a life. And we had a recent big conference in Vigyan Bhavan, Life Economy. It was a global summit. Throughout the world, people came and praised this, and particularly Brazil, who is already taken over the presidency from us right from today.
For G20.
G20 presidency has assured us that the life economy is extremely important, and Life Mission will flow as life economy, and it will push throughout the globe during G20 presidency of Brazil, and so also South Africa has assured us it will flow subsequently. And in COP28, we have a very special pavilion known as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, G20 to COP28, India's mission, where Life Mission has been showcased very well, and it has received largest appreciation from different part of the world. And there are many side events being organized by OECD, International Energy Agency, India and Brazil together, Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Environment and Government of India initiatives to educate the global participants of COP28 regarding the importance of life to practice, which can be adopted by every individuals, so that the planetary resources could be optimized, planetary resources could be used efficiently, and the necessary conservation can be achieved. So for that, we have a great global acceptance, and this Life Mission has a great impact it will bring to the entire planet. We have seen many Western countries are engaged in their as usual lifestyles, which is very wasteful. and mindless consumption of resources. Nobody even bothered to switch off the electric switch, amounting the huge loss of energy and generating greenhouse gases. So we need to, this is a high time, we need all of us at individual level, at government level, at industrial level and all stakeholder level should be mindful to reduce our carbon footprint, water footprint and ecological footprint.
But this initiative, if we could talk about that a little further, Colonel Srivastav, in terms of what India has done, green credit as well as Ecomark, this, to what extent do you think it is possible to sort of replicate it around the world as well? Because that is something that perhaps India is aiming to do, to at least offer to the world.
In fact, I just wanted to substantiate or endorse what Dr. Panigrahi has said, that India has moved forward so much that in the LIFE mission and in other missions, we have also gone for climate resilience, food consumption patterns and food security. So we are onto the low carbon consumption of food. We are into the high nutrition, productivity of agriculture. If you see over a period of time, the research-based studies have shown that the nutrition content in, say, our rice or our vegetables like palak has come down, and India has produced through Amrit Krishi, through organic farming, those sort of food which has a high nutrition value. So that adds up to the food security, and we have graduated further into the climate resilient health systems.
Yes, India, and we've carried forward a millet mission as well, which has been accepted by the globe too, and we've had the International Year of Millets too, which is again sustainable agriculture.
Absolutely. Sustainable agriculture is a major. In fact, we have a stall there in the COP28, which is showing what India has done, and our Amrit Krishi and our high nutrition variety of food products, local, adaptation of agriculture practices, best practices are being showcased by India. So this is something which is global problem, how to address locally through the local produce, local best agriculture practices, high nutrition, productivity, that will add to the health part. And we have gone on to further health mission, and our digital health mission, which was projected in the G20, has taken part as a climate resilient health systems for the third world and even for the developed countries. So we are connecting global south to the global north with a showcasing of good examples that makes India a leader in advocating for a climate finance. The climate finance, as Dr. Panigrahi said, it has to be equitable, it has to be with climate justice, and there are areas like early warning for disasters. If you see, except earthquake, India is a leader in all sorts of early warning and resilient practices. So that is, again, we are sharing with our SAARC countries, African countries. So that has showcased the world a resilient way of managing hazards, because the future is going to be dynamic as far as climate is concerned. And so are going to be the response mechanism, preventive mechanism. So our risk transfer mechanism, our early warning systems, and then this, if you see the side events which are taking place, lead IT with Sweden, which we are doing. This is also involving the corporates, the industries, the emissions, greenhouse gas emissions by various industries. Though India depends on the, coal as of now, but the way we have advanced, we have come to a level where renewable energy, our contribution in the energy consumption is more than 40%. And our targets are advancing much faster. So that gives not only a confidence, but also attracts the global finance for a public-private partnership in renewable energy. So there are many fields, like we have highlighted, where India stands as a leader in the world and a representative for the global south, and connect between the developed north to the rest of the world.
Definitely, and that is what is required. Lead IT, you mentioned these are some of the practices, Dr. Panigrahi, that are essential to stave off this burgeoning danger of what climate change is bringing about. In terms of what India has already done, where it is clearly ahead of the kind of goals it's determined for itself, the NDCs, what else can India offer in terms of practices that are proving to be successful here. They are helping us meet our goals, which the world could also, take a very serious look at whether they should be going for it as well.
Yes. India has become a global leader in decarbonization as well as sustainability. Both in Sustainable Development Goal implementation, India has created wonderful examples for the rest of the world. Now coming to the particular climate actions and decarbonization, we are also equally playing global leadership role in adaptation as well as mitigation. We have created a coalition of disaster and it's a platform where where we are supporting many poorer island nations who are whose existence has been questioned because of sea level rise. We are trying to help them in climate change, capacity building and adaptation. In addition, there are many global leadership India has showcased by creating examples in carbon emission reductions. Like we have created bioethanol and biofuels in G20 Global Biofuel Alliance has been launched. It's a global leadership again, and Brazil is the main partner with India to take it and carry forward further during its G20 presidency, which has been started right from today for Brazil. In addition, we have created the renewable energy portfolio. In last 10 years, the kind of the renewable energy in terms of solar, it is manifold as 20 times larger production. If you go back to cleaner energy sources like green hydrogen, it is India's leadership. India has banked up upon this green hydrogen as the most renewable energy source and investing heavily through green hydrogen mission, and there are many plants throughout the countries coming up. India is taken stronger action for the reduction of the forest fires. India has taken initiatives through our budget allocations by creating a National Adaptation Fund where NABARD is involved. We have created a green finance mechanism, and the most importantly, through the Ministry of Power and Bureau of Energy Efficiency, we are trying to create a Indian carbon market where the carbon credits will be traded inside the country, and it is a intra-carbon trading mechanism. In addition to the India's participation in global carbon markets through many leading exchanges right from Chicago, New York, Tokyo, Singapore, and Shanghai. So our stock exchanges have also taken initiatives to create mechanisms like social stock exchange, where the social sector protectionism has been adopted to give them a protection from climate change vulnerability. And at grassroots level, for reduction of the vulnerability reduction, India has created funds and it is implementing through various adaptation mechanism at community level for the poor farmers, for poor fishermen, for horticulture persons, those who are practicing, giving them right knowledge to make their livelihood safer and staying stronger against the vulnerability of climate change that has been affecting their life very badly. India has created many such wonderful examples which is getting replicated different parts of the world. As an example, the kind of the disaster management system we have built inside the country by creating a rapid action force and NDRF and all that. They have created examples by tackling various flood situations, disaster situations, cyclones, both in the eastern and western coast since last 2 years. The examples are many. So we are going out of the way to help G77 and China. The poorer nations, both the underdeveloped and the developing country platform, largely Global South, to build our collective strength and capacity building to stand before the climate change, because the poorer are the worst affected.
True, and that's why India has forthrightly also expressed its expectation, because India is doing so much, that there should be a clear roadmap for climate finance as well. And Colonel Srivastav, in terms of that aspect of what these leaders will be deliberating, and the entire COP28, in fact, for the next 11 odd days, where do you think we're headed in terms of ensuring that the kind of finance, especially the least developed countries require, will be available to combat climate change?
You see, if you see the G20 deliberations of India, India has very clearly laid down that there is a requirement of finance for climate resilience in the developing and the poorer countries.
I believe $1 trillion is what is required.
Absolutely. And the first and foremost requirement was early warning for all. And if you see, India has already developed wonderful early warning systems. And today we are a cyclone resilient country. We are a lightning resilient country. We have identified the global changes which are taking place and the finances required. The most important is the rehabilitation part and the risk transfer mechanism part. India has sought a fund for rehabilitation, because the first thing which happens in a poorer country is the loss of housing and the livelihood facilities. So through coalition of disaster resilient infrastructures, India has created models for the Caribbean countries, for the vulnerable countries, what type of housing, what type of resilient livelihood, what type of communication infrastructure will be required. And we are showcasing that, we are funding that, we are making that. So India's leadership in creating a proper rehabilitation and reconstruction plan is there. Second part comes is the risk transfer mechanism. It is always that risk the governments are made to pay heavily, say a Turkey earthquake or a cyclone in the African countries. So there the risk transfer mechanism through the flow of finance, assurance and reassurance is being taken, and the commitment of the developed countries are being sought, so that a firm and proper risk transfer mechanism exists, and the poorer who loses their housing and livelihood are rehabilitated immediately, and there is a proper promised and assured system which is available. Then comes our energy transition. If you see, this conference is also for setting up global goal on adaptation, that is GGA, that is agreeing for the Paris Agreement and setting up your targets. So here the complete what India has done, if you see our consumption, our GHG emission is 6.3 ton per individual. Though internationally, if you see, India stands third, but our per capita income is very good, 2.3 ton vis-a-vis more than 6 tons by the other countries. So the life mission which India has set up, everybody's lifestyle is changing, and our per capita consumption will be reducing. So this can be an example for the developed countries and the Global South for adaptation, which is going to mark, because the Global South has a very strong contribution in the climate, in the emissions. So Global South, large pollution, if they adapt the practices, what Life Mission, energy transition, food system transformation, or resilient agriculture, climate resilient agriculture practices, they are going to be strongly committing with the finance and practices together to the climate resilient world.
Certainly. Dr. Panagri, you wanted to add something there in terms of how
climate finance
yes.
is very important, and even the technology transfer is the most pressing requirement. And through IPR and other mechanisms, the technology transfer has become very, very costly and out of reach affairs for the developing and underdeveloped world. And developed countries has never bothered. In last 27 COPs, we are keep on negotiating, we are pressing our demands. The SAPTA is there, the institutional mechanism in UN FCCCC, but nothing has been done for technology transfer enough. And the technology transfer requires huge climate fund and in terms of climate finance. And in other way, both the adaptation and mitigation to build the capacities of the developing and the underdeveloped world, the developed...
But why in the first place is technology transfer such a critical aspect, and why has it been so difficult to tackle?
Technology transfer is extremely important because we need those technologies which will be emitting least carbon emissions,
right,
to in the interest of the planet's protection. And now the old obsolete technologies that developing countries are already running, or take for example changing from fossil fuel to renewable energy, we need more and more investment, and we need for new technologies to get in, we need IPR expenditures.
But that's privately owned. Governments don't own them mostly.
Yes, these are all privately owned, and even few technologies are even government owned. The kind of the terms and conditions, yes,
dual use.
It is tilted towards the greater interest of the developed nation, and even there are various international treaties like Kyoto Protocol, Montreal Protocol, and this hardly any significant technology transfer as countries like India has received from these mechanisms. Comparatively, Montreal is better because the money was given to buy the technology, but in Kyoto it has not even happened so. Other than LED bulbs and some few technologies of this kind, nothing has come free. And these expenditures are enormous, and even the technology transfer is done, it is not only know-how, and after getting technology, some appropriate technology trainings are required. And the developed world, even if the necessary money is paid to them, they have not completely transferred the technology for which many of the technologies are not being properly used that the developing country has received from them. And there are huge problems are remaining in these sectors, and so more carbon intensive industries and their production process, life cycle stages and equipments needs changes and replacement, for which we need this support. Coming to the climate finance, if you remember in COP15 in Copenhagen, the developed nations has promised $100 billion per year to the developing and underdeveloped world as a climate finance assistance, and which has never been kept so far. If you go back further back during Kyoto Protocol, the countries like India and other developing countries and underdeveloped, we don't had a target, emission reduction target to achieve, and developed countries has already agreed and taken a target to reduce. Hardly 11.23% of their target is they could able to deliver, which is a very poor. So the Kyoto Protocol has failed miserably because the developed nation could not keep their word in terms of implementing the global climate agenda for which they are responsible for. Now the legacy carbon space related debate has been initiated. If you see last 100 years climate data, the kind of the emission for which we are responsible for and the developed nations are responsible for, that is huge, which they are not accepting under Paris Agreement, but even whatever been committed is not kept. So in every COP, this is going on, and the technology transfer and climate finance is remaining the key topics of negotiations, the different way and mechanism of delivery of the technology and the finance, but it is unfortunately not happening. Not to the extent it is expected. Forget that, it is not happening at all. So India is made its mind. India has a lot of very stronger mechanisms established within the country to establish the appropriate system to build our own capacity, and whatever the best we can do for the rest of the world also, we have come forward with a leadership, and we are always telling right from the COP1 of UNFCCC, India is not responsible for the problem, but India is certainly a leader for the solutions.
Okay. Now let's talk about what could prove to be contentious as well, which is, of course, how to really ensure that there is a phase out of fossil fuels. That's something that India has opposed, but the Western world has been crying for it. And that is sure to come up in the stock take as well, Colonel Srivastav. So how will the world reunite on this particular matter?
You see, every country has its own economy. Say today, economy is based on the natural resources. If you go to the Middle East, they are the oil producer. Today, India has almost 68% power production by the coal. Similarly is China. So there are natural resources which based on which the energy use was there. But the best part which has happened, you see today, India has come to a stage where more than 40% of our energy transition is due to the renewable energy. So there is a step forward. Similarly, you see the UAE. UAE has set up the world's largest solar park. So those roadblocks which were there right from COP 2015, you can see a very, very clear transition from that to a new adaptability, acceptability. And what Dr. Panigrahi was saying, climate finance, India always talks of climate justice, because what has happened to the climate is not due to the, what India has done. It is courtesy the Western world and the developed world. So this dialogue has started making a breakthrough. Okay. And the first thing which has come is the loss and damage fund. You see, the host country, UAE, has put up $100 million. Similarly, they are pursuing the Western world. The maximum contribution, what is expected, is from United States of America. But they have now come up with a 17.5 million. If you see European countries, they are committing 600 million euros.
Okay, there we can see on the screen now is the family photo of all the leaders who've come for COP28 to take part in this summit that is being held there at this Expo City in Dubai. This is the Global Climate Action Summit. You can see Prime Minister Modi standing with Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, but all those leaders are there. I could see for a moment Ursula von der Leyen as well of the EU. So these are the events that are unfolding right now at COP28 in Dubai. That's a large gathering really of world leaders. Joe Biden couldn't be there. I don't think Xi Jinping is there either, but we could also see Rishi Sunak, UK Prime Minister, there, and a lot of leaders from Europe and Africa too. Let me now take you across to my colleague Tapas Bhattacharya there in Dubai, tracking all the developments. Tapas, what can you tell us about this summit? We just saw the family photo, a lot of leaders present. So just tell us in terms of, Prime Minister Modi, of course, there, but which are the other prominent ones who are present, and which are the prominent ones, I mentioned some of them, who are absent?
Yeah, well, what one can tell you, Gautam, is that it's a family photo, and it shows once again Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the very forefront. And one more point that one needs to understand is that even though there is a lot of bonhomie that one saw at that time, a lot of discussion is going to take place, and it's going to be quite a not that interesting one, because I remember as your guest was talking about the fact that historical legacy has to be understood, and that's something that this particular COP28 will like to do. And somewhere down the line in the stock taking, a lot of hard question will be asked why certain decision or certain countries could not keep up with their NDC targets. So they all smiles there, but behind backdoor channels, when the diplomacy will work, especially as ministers of all these countries will work together, and they will trash out the details. And remember, the UAE declaration will come after if it at all comes, it will showcase some of the major points. What I can tell you is that UAE is also working on a plan that they can increase the loss and damage fund. In fact, what I can tell you is that they are working on a manner in which $7 to $8 trillion can at least be put on every year till 2030, so that the mitigation target can be met.
$7 to $8 trillion?
At least, yes.
Wow, that would be
yes,
something.
That's something that they might just come up with. That would be amazing. But again, a lot of permutation and combination are currently going on, and one will
right now,
it will be interesting to see
are about
whether
$500 million for this loss and damage fund. So far, 100 million from the UAE, 100 million from Germany, 150 million from EU, 17 odd million from the US, which is a very small amount considering it's the largest polluter historically.
At least, you need. So if you want to reduce or keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius commitment of Paris Agreement commitment intact, if you want to make a major impact, 100 billion is not going to be enough. That's something that even in COP26 and COP27 the leaders understood. And although the problem that happened is the application or adaptability of the loss and damage fund was not there. In fact, it took almost a year to get it done. In fact, it happened here in UAE. But again, it realizes that you need investment of close to 5 to 7 trillion US dollar annually in greening the global economy by 2030. If at all, if you really want to make a major dent, and that's something that we believe. And this is something I'm telling you, Gautam, that a lot of people are currently working behind the scene. We might see in the UAE declaration coming up with the numbers that I just mentioned to you.
All right, that will be very, very impressive, Dr. Panik. What do you make of that loss and damage fund, which right now a lot of commentary has been coming in, is highly inadequate, could ultimately be quite a mammoth contribution to combating climate change if all this buzz is to be believed?
Exactly, you are very correct. And loss and damage fund is extremely important, and India is already strongly supporting this fund.
Apparent outcome of COP28, because the way the entire analysis has been done and the homework has been done by the transitional committee, and the way the host country and the senior leaders like PM Modi are committed towards it, I think loss and damage fund is going to be the most important outcome. And not only first contribution, the countries there are emphasizing on sustainability of loss and damage fund, because the continuous flow of fund and assured fund, so that a sustainable action is taken towards the climate and disaster risk reduction, that is going to be the targeted roadmap. So climate finance is related to every action, global goal on adaptation, our roadmap strategy towards accelerate climate action, renewable energy transition, our agriculture best practices. So climate finance forms the crux, and I think this COP28 is the way people are committed, the way negotiations are going, the way the fillers, what we are getting from our colleagues over there, it is going to be a really COP of action and with assured climate finance.
Let's talk further about this loss and damage fund, Dr. Panagrahi. How does one process this in terms of this initiative was proposed almost 3 decades ago. It's supposed to be something that the developing world is supposed to be getting, especially the least developed countries, the island nations, supposed to be getting from the developed world. But I guess expectations are changing as to who all should be contributing to it.
Yes. The developing world and the underdeveloped world, the most sufferer, the more vulnerability they are encountering with related to climate change. Many climate refugees has been created. There is a loss of water for which crop production is not happening. Due to higher temperature, the agricultural production has gone absolutely down and food security has become endangered in various localities. The impact of climate change is adverse impact of climate change is very much visible in pockets in developed and underdeveloped world, which they are not
developing
yes. world, and which they are not able to encounter with their limited resources. Like forest fires are shooting everywhere, irrespective of developed and developing nations. So building the capacities of the developing and underdeveloped world, they need there are two kind of requirements. One is prevention. There has to be enough investment in support grants to prevent the natural disasters and likely adverse impact.
Yeah, for example, the island nations need embankments to be built on shores so that they don't get submerged.
Exactly. And the another fund is once the things has already been taken place, there is a huge damage has occurred. And we need to bring solace, we need to see that the life runs further comparatively in a smoother way. And when something great calamities, great unexpected natural and man-made disasters has taken place because of climate change. So we need a huge money, which is trillions of dollars are required. $3 trillion as it has been estimated by the UNEP, and there are different agencies are estimating different amount, OECD, World Bank, and everybody has their own reports. But from where this fund will come? The public funding is there. Every country has their public funding, but that is there is a limitation to it. And from UN through multilateralism, there is a lot of attempt has been done by creating different funds, like say Green Climate Fund or Adaptation Fund, but these kitties are too small, and they are not able to meet even 3 to 5% of the loss and damages that is happening in the planet. So in such a situations, there is a need of greater support where all the nations who has the capabilities should come forward, and for planetary, larger collective planetary objective, they must commit more funds. And,
but which should these nations be? Just from the developed world, or is there an expectation that some developing countries like ours, and China is still considered to be, I mean, they consider themselves to be a developing country, but there's a whole debate on whether China should be considered a developing country or a developed country. Are they also expected to contribute?
There are two processes. One is those who are emitting more greenhouse gases, they under polluter pays principle, they must pay more.
But historically, we're not major polluters.
That is the present thing. And the past thing, like you know, if you see from ice age till now, there are various emission profiles and global warming is taking place. And in the Industrial Revolution 1, 2, there is a lot of who has used the planetary carbon space more, who have exhausted more planetary natural resources and are not given equal right to the rest of the citizens of the world. This is a time for them to repay, and so where the climate justice and equity is coming into picture, and this is a matter of debate, and based on this principle Kyoto Protocol was designed. And now in Paris, subsequent Paris Agreement, it has been realized that who are supposed to do, they are not doing enough. So at the same time, the entire planet is going into more and more crucial crisis, and the existence of the planet is at stake. So in such a situation, let everybody come together and let us do who can do whatever they can do the best for this crisis, irrespective of the beyond calculation. And under that, India has largest commitments, very ambitious commitments during Panchamrut, and and the kind of the actions India has taken inside the country so far. And now so there is something binding as per the present emission profile, and so based on that the developed nations are asked for. And the another and there is a mechanism under Paris Agreement. So China, although a developing nation on per capita term, but in total financial earnings and GDP, and as well as China is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, so it has a more and vital responsibility to take care of the planetary recovery. The US is the second largest emitter, and the oil lobbies are not letting their political leadership to take enough climate actions. If you analyze last 20 years United States action and their presence and their delivery to UNFCCC mechanisms. India is the third largest. In fact, European Union is the third largest.
Yes.
But it is not a country, it is a conglomeration of countries. That is why many people argue that India is the third largest under the category. But India is a summation of largest poorer people, and our methane emission is very high, and which is basically for our food system, food production system. The poorer farmers, they have no other way other than to adopt subsistence practices, agricultural practices, and the rice production where in the land the water remains stagnant for some time, it emits methane. And India is asking global forum that so far as food security is concerned and food habits are concerned, and the poorer people, poorer community who are themselves are victim of the climate change is a part of this rice production. Let us then debate because of the rice production into the COP28, and let us rather discuss only industrial emissions of methane as a part of this larger debate, whereas the developed nations are pressing India. India is the largest emitter of methane, and again from rice productions, and China comes seconds. And so, there is a greater demand from the developed world that in COP28 the methane emitters have to be made responsible to pay, which India is protesting, that we will only be paying industrial emission of methane and not the agricultural emission of the methane.
So, do you feel, Colonel Srivastava, in all this, there will be some ground created for moving forward in a unified manner? Because it's not just about methane, as Dr. Panagrahi said, it's also about cutting down the use of fossil fuels and sort of coming up with a date as to by when will fossil fuels, including coal, oil and everything else, will be completely phased out, which seems very, very tall order at this stage.
If you see, India's advocacy at this forum has been a climate justice-based climate finance. So India has always been India has advocated that China has its own responsibility, US has its own responsibility. And as Dr. Panigrahi was talking about the methane gas emission, this is due to the natural habitat of the region. And India has protested against the advocacy of the Western world. This time, the finances are going to come. What matters is how much is the finance committed by the USA. So far, it is $17.5 million, which is quite small if you take UAE, which itself has committed 100 million US dollar. The total commitment in the COP27 was $400 billion, and 400 million today we are. So if you take from that, it's a very, very minuscule amount. But the way today and tomorrow's leadership and summit and next 12 days it is going to be, we are hopeful that there will be a commitment, more commitment from US and developed world. And we are expecting a contribution from China also, because China has also a significant amount of industrial emission. The entire money is going to be, hosted by the World Bank, and with the type of leadership World Bank has, US is again going to play a major role. So if US has to play a major role in operation of this loss and damage fund, it has to be a major contributor also.
Yes.
Without contributing substantially, they cannot be on a key role or a master role in regulating this fund.
But let's see what the leaders have to say as far as this particular event is concerned. The Global Climate Action Summit. Prime Minister Modi will also be speaking through the course of the day as proceedings move ahead. Let me again bring in my colleague Tapas Bhattacharya from the Expo City in Dubai, where this entire event over the next 11 days is taking place. Tapas, what more can you tell us in terms of how are the deliberations likely to go over here?
Well, I was just listening to the talks that the expert were making here even in the studio. They mentioned the fact that these emissions are a major cause of concern. Just to put it into perspective of why it is imperative to get to the bottom of it, and history is something that one has to look into. India's contribution to the carbon dioxide load, and I mean I'm talking about currently, is only 3%. And although remember our population is almost 17% of the world, that gives you a bit of a perspective. And if you just take a close look at the our per capita emission, India's per capita emission is just over 2 tons per year, and that's actually 1/3 of the average per capita load. Just to put it in perspective, the per capita average is over 6.5 ton per year. So you imagine
that's for the entire global population.
The developed countries. You imagine the developed countries are talking about carbon emission, and here they are the one who's technically and scientifically proven that they are the one who's they have been at the forefront of carbon emission, and not just now. I'm talking about historically. It is their responsibility. So the developed countries can't shy away from that particular fact. But I have with me Mr. Prashant Chaubey. He is the president of the Avada Energy. Sir, the loss and damage fund is almost 100 billion. We expect that this is not enough. We expect the UAE declaration to go much beyond that. What is your take on that?
See, if you look at the entire aspect of a climate financing, it comes from the perspective that developing countries who have suffered, and being no fault of their, right, because they have come late on the industrialization, and now they are bearing the brunt of the climate-related issues. So the $100 billion fund which has been given, and let me give you a perspective, it is two parts to it. One is that 50% is to go for the adaptation initiative, and 50% to go for the mitigation. But actually most of the money is going for the mitigation measure. Second part, which is coming from this, if you look at the trajectory, that this climate finance of $100 billion, it has been committed, is either committed in the form of pledges or loans. And the loans are very costly loans if you look at, right? Because traditionally developing countries, because of issues, because of the credit rating, their access to fund is quite expensive, right? So even in that case, it doesn't serve the purpose. And it makes really a meaning that somebody or a country which has contributed to like 50% of damage to the climate, they should actually end up paying about $40 to $50 billion.
More than that.
But if you look at that, it is about $6 to $7 billion factually.
Yes.
So that has been an issue, and actually the countries, developing countries, will need trillions of dollars, right? So that's the one part of climate finance. Second is that you are also setting up nationally determined contribution, right? So how will they meet their NDCs, right? It involves setting up larger renewable energy capacity, building more resilient supply chain lines, creating a robust ecosystem which can adapt to the climate change. So that has been a major issue in the context of climate change.
Mr. Prashant, Gautam, I'd like to put 2 points out here. The first is about freeing up of the fiscal space. We do go through recession period. The world goes through that. Do you believe that the kind of bonds or the financial mechanism that needs to be put in place, they have to be free up from all this, market regulation, market, movement. And also, I would like to also talk about the concessional finance. You mentioned already that's expensive. Do you believe that it's high time that the financial institutions come up with the concessional finances, not just for the developed country, but more so for the South, especially the African countries?
Absolutely. Actually, if you look at the entire climate financing, it has to come from government, it has to come from multilaterals, it has to come from private. It is actually the mobilization of finance coming from all sources on the planet which can come together to meet the same. And I think looking at the developing countries, it will make more sense than we evolve a kind of a mechanism where there is more concession given toward it, right? If you are giving a loan which is, because of the nature of the credit rating of a developing country, is a very expensive, make it concessional, right? It is about an endeavor where you really want to come together. That's what India is proposing, right? India is saying that take action which is visible now. When you talk about global stock take, India is saying, or about enhanced action required, India is saying that what is required, right? But you first say what has actually happened, how much we have done. India, being a country of about 1.4 billion, we have set such difficult targets, and we have been able to achieve them. Some of them we have achieved. We have set net zero by 2070. Looking at this volume of things,
looks like we will be able to achieve it much earlier.
Yes.
Just wanted to put it across. The Western countries, the developed countries, are not talking about mitigation. What about adaptability? Adaptation is something that COP26 they spoke about, and now they have again changed the goalposts. Isn't it something dichotomy in that sense?
To an extent, yes. Adaptation is to create this resilient infrastructure. So it will have many forms, right? One is that you create a very resilient infrastructure which can cope with the changes in the climate, or you go for agriculture practices which are conducive to this. So adaptation is really your ability to cope with the climate change. So one is a reactive measure where you go for the mitigation, something already happened. But this is a proactive measure where you create this capability, you create this resilience within them, and that is very important to focus. So far, it has not received much of a focus, but it should receive more focus.
What I understand, Gautam, and something that the global South is also talking quite univocally, that the goalpost from, let's say, from Paris Agreement till now has been changing. Earlier, the developed countries said that the coal has to be phased on, phased out. Then they're now talking about methane gas. A lot of things are now happening. But what matter most is that what about the developing countries? I mean, you just told them to move to one set of energy requirement. Then again, the energy requirement changes. So those are the energy guarantee has to be given to those countries who are still not developed yet, and it's not their mistake that the developed countries have so far made the world the way it is. So I just wanted to ask Prashant, sir, it is. How will you achieve a goal where there is a divergent views, but at the same time you believe that this is not enough, especially when it comes to putting it, your NDC, you mentioned NDC targets. The developed countries have yet not been able to fulfill their NDC targets.
Yeah, that's right actually. So first take which India is saying is that let's define the NDCs and let's take the real stock of the NDCs, right? Our NDCs, as far as India is concerned, which our Prime Minister said very loud and clear to the world, and as I said earlier, these 5 things, the Panchamrit, it has actually set the pace of energy transition in India, right? Looking at companies like Avada, right, what we are doing in the renewable energy transition, and we are doing it for the 10 years, is all aligned to that larger vision. One part was a larger renewable energy transition, which is led by and right from the front by our Prime Minister. And second is that now he has set for a green hydrogen to bring a lot more renewable energy deployment and being India a hub for it. Now coming back to your question, it is all about just transition, right? What we are saying is that what India is trying to prove is that we can really bring everybody on the same page, right? Now let's not try to force everybody to bring on the same pace, right? There'll be a time, developing countries, it's time for them. Everybody, including India, has got own national priorities, right? There's a lot more population which requires access to renewable energy or access to electricity or access to a very robust kind of a conducive system for them. And that's the reason it will take a time to move forward towards them. And this collaboration is what our Prime Minister is proposing.
Yeah, but the collaboration is very important, but at the same time, as we were mentioning the fact that, the basket, energy basket has to be increased. There has to be multiple options that require. So far India is basically a coal-based economy, but it's started to move away towards more renewable energy. We have already said that by 2030, more than 50% or 60% of our energy requirement will come from the renewable source of energy. And green hydrogen, you mentioned, it's a huge point. But again, we have to go back to a scenario where how to combine all of them together, all the renewable energy products. The problem that will come will be on when it comes to storage. How do we solve the problem of storage?
That's right, what you are saying. So if you look at trajectory, if you take a base year of 2014, right, from about 200 or 215 gigawatt to we have crossed about 400 gigawatt plus. That's a very significant addition. Renewable capacity has also been very, very significant now. Our aim is, India's target is to reach about 500 gigawatt by 2030. And one of our NDCs is also that 50% of our capacity has to be renewable. Now, renewable capacity, because of its own nature, is intermittent in nature. So solar you can produce during the day and wind during day and night. So what India has coming up, that there are 2 solutions for storage. One is a battery related, but we do not have access to lithiums and other things.
That's another point. We talk about that we do not have the resources, especially the metals, the special metals that we talk about, lithium, cobalt.
But then India has figured out another thing, and that's pumped storage projects, right? Pumped storage hydro projects, where you feed the surplus renewable energy, and it's the same kind of upper reservoir and lower reservoir. You take the water up, and during the need, you take the water down through the same. And India has come out with a large pumped storage projects, and Avada is also looking at setting up a large pumped storage projects, because we have solar energy, we have wind energy, and when we match this energy with the pumped storage project, then everybody in the country will be able to give a renewable energy which is 24/7. Avada is almost like ready to give this energy.
So the point that Gautam, we were talking about, the future is renewable energy. There is no doubt about it. We currently are in a scenario where the transition is happening. When the transition happens, there is the problem that one faces, and that's the time you require the finance, the climate finance, the loss and damage fund. All this will be a big issue, especially as Prime Minister Narendra Modi will start talking. He will give what will India's position will. It will be much more clear in the next couple of hours. But what one realizes is that the walk the talk that India is doing, not a lot of nations are doing, and it is high time that what you say, you have to implement that. So especially the onus of that remains on the developed countries. Gautam.
Well, certainly it does. Dr. Panagri, in terms of how this debate is likely to proceed, we will, of course, see contentious points being made and scored from one quarter and the other. The developed world and the global south, they have very different perspectives on how climate change should be tackled and the kind of solutions that are required. So where do you see a common ground being developed?
We need to have a common ground anyway, otherwise planetary protection is next to impossible. And for which all the COPs are struggling right from the day one. There are differences, there will be differences, but all needs to come to a common point. The global south are perfectly correct in their own way that they are not responsible for the problem if the legacy emissions are taken into account and right over the carbon space is considered. So far as right over carbon space is concerned, when somebody is taking birth in the planet, let it be from India or from US or from Japan or from Sri Lanka or Maldives, the child has the equal right over planetary resources and planetary carbon space. But unfortunately, it is an unequal world, and the developed nations has consumed huge resources and still consuming huge resources, and the developing and underdeveloped are deprived of their rights over their resources, their carbon space for their growth, which is directly related to their growth, in fact. So when that is why the climate justice come into picture, and when there is a dispute, there is a misunderstanding, there is a differences, the best way is to sit together and to discuss what is acceptable to all, and the truth must prevail. So all these legacy emissions which is being emitted from time immemorial, and that must taken into account. There is a calculation so it shows that 80% of the emissions, legacy emissions, for which the developed nations are responsible for, and whereas countries like India has hardly 3% responsible for the present as well as legacy emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. So there are a lot of studies has been taken place, and it is getting published every day and coming to the picture. Even IPCC AR6 has very clearly told that this kind of scenario cannot continue. We are at 1.3 degrees centigrade, which planetary system can tolerate, and the temperature is rapidly increasing, and maybe if it continues as a business as usual format, by the 2050 it will be at 2.9 degrees centigrade, which will
it's already 1.4 degrees Celsius, the rise in temperature for 2023, and the goal was 1.5. It seems that the time is really slipping out of our hands at a very alarming rate, and it's just getting hotter and hotter by the day. 2023 already the hottest year on record. That's what the latest report has said from the World Meteorological Organization, and they're saying that 2024 will be even worse. And there again, what Prime Minister Modi has said in terms of the interview that he's given to this UAE publication, he said that rising ambitions on climate action must see matching progress on climate finance. That just seems to be the crux, isn't it, Colonel Srivastav, where what really is required at Dubai in that Expo City, and perhaps we'll see some action on that front.
Absolutely. Prime Minister is dot on that climate justice is possible only with a climate finance, and it has to be based on some rationale, and there are breakthroughs expected. The most important part is, other than the loss and damage fund, India has also gone for the unconventional systems like CDRI, Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. So that's a global alliance where the fund flow is taking place. There is International Solar Alliance where the fund flow is taking place. There is International Biofuel Alliance where the fund is being, coming. Similarly, agriculture practices, green credit with UAE, lead IT. So it has to have a multi-sectoral application-based financing. So loss and damage fund, of course, it is coming for adaptation and mitigation, but there are other areas where a lot of finance will be required. So covering a whole gamut of aspects of climate related impacts and then asking for a climate fund. So India is smartly pushing on the agenda based on not only loss and damage fund, but multi-sectoral funds which are required. So that is going to again lead the way, and there are going to be substantial agreements on at least these alliances which India has formed, various global alliances, and fund flow is expected. And as the fund flows, the action will follow.
And perhaps a person of Indian origin in the shape and form of Mr. Banga will also play a very vital role there in the World Bank on this front too. But let's see what happens. We'll know very soon what these leaders have to say at this summit that is unfolding right now in Dubai as part of COP28. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about it, Colonel Srivastava and Dr. Panagrahi, and I thank my colleague Tapas as well. But Tapas, of course, will be dipping in with you through the day as well, so stick around for that one too. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment for this special presentation. There will be more news and updates coming up on DD India in DD India News Hour with my colleague Ramesh Ramachandran, so do stay tuned.